Have you ever felt like you're in the wrong place? Like you're not where you want to be? Like you're not there yet? You're not accomplishing enough. You're not getting to where you want to go. Everyone else is past you. It could be you're in the wrong neighborhood or the wrong career or you're with the wrong people. It could be macro. It could be micro. You're at an event and you're talking to the wrong person. Let's say you want to be talking to these people and talking to these people. It could be your family's like this and not like this, or your house or community or school or job. Like, ever feel this way? But you look around and you say, it's not a holy feeling. You know what I'm feeling? It's different. It feels like almost like I wish I were more feeling. It's not really a striving for Hashem. It's more of like a dissatisfaction with life. You ever feel that way? Well, if you did, the Or HaChaim in this week's Parsha is for you. So Or HaChaim in this week's Parsha, great question. The Parsha says, Ele ma'aseh b'nei Yisrael, Ele ma'aseh b'nei Yisrael sheyotzu me'eretz Mitzrayim. These are the journeys of b'nei Yisrael that left Mitzrayim. Remember, the Jews left Mitzrayim, left Egypt. They didn't go straight to Israel, right? 40 years in the desert. But in the 40 years of the desert, it wasn't because they just stood in one place. They didn't set up shop. Schools, shuls, kosher food were good for 40 years. And then 40 years later, they were able to go in and they went in. No, they kept on moving around. Remember, how big is the Sinai Desert? And they moved. They stayed someplace, set up shop, sometimes for a day. Moshe was like, let's go. Move 5 miles and maybe in a different direction for a year. 6 miles in another direction for 3 months. They kept on moving around the whole time. And the Torah says these are the journeys. But the Or HaChaim says journeys? What do you mean journeys? It should say these are the places where they stopped. If I take you on a tour of Israel, you're not telling me about the journeys, about Kvish Achad and the 1 and the 3 and the Highway 52 and you're telling me about that I went to Yerushalayim and I went to Tveria, then I went to Meron and I went to Hebron. You're talking about where you stopped. That's the purpose. So it should say these are the places where they stopped. What's the journeys? And he gives a very deep Kabbalistic insight, which I don't understand. He explains that the Jewish people were not bouncing around the desert for no reason. You see, there's a concept called divine sparks. In Hebrew, it's called nitzotzos. Now, I don't really get it, but I know a little bit of what people greater than me have told me, that basically the way it works, from my understanding, is that you have this spirituality that's out there, maybe in people, maybe in things, maybe in places, and you yourself you're able to be a conduit for spirituality. And when you do spiritual things, potentially you lift up the environment around you. You redeem, if you will, sparks that are lost. And so if you make a blessing on a food, you could be lifting the spark of that food. Or if you pray in a certain location, if you see a person and you encourage them to be connected to Hashem, if you bring godliness everywhere you go, you potentially are lifting sparks everywhere you go. Now, that's an incredible thing because those sparks are lost, and maybe it is your job to lift them up, and your soul gets from those sparks. It's an incredible work. That's divine work, lifting sparks. Now, the desert was filled with sparks. It was the place, if you will, of the non-holy side. It's the desert. It's filled with scorpions, and there's no life, and there's no wildlife, and there's no what. That's the place. The desert is that place of the non-holy side, and so the Jewish people, they were poised, the Or HaChaim says, to do great work. They were full. They had 600,000 souls. They had Moshe, which was sort of the root tree. They had Aaron, which was the officer of the Shekhinah. They had the Torah. They came out of Egypt, which refined them. They were ready to go. And so they took all that and they walked into the desert, and the desert was filled with unlifted sparks. And for some places it took them a day and they lifted everything and they left. And some places took a year. That's why they moved around for, because what they were doing was they were finding places and they were collecting sparks. Now, while they were there, they were doing all they were doing, praying, doing whatever. But really, it wasn't until they left that all the sparks come with them. So the Or HaChaim says the reason why it says these are the journeys is because it's all about the journey. It was about taking the sparks away. It was taking the hostages out of Gaza. The location isn't important. It's the sparks that are important. So we want to take them out. So on a deeper level, the Or HaChaim says, look at it inside. It's in Bamidbar Lamed Gimel Aleph, the Or HaChaim. Read it, the whole thing. It's a large piece that is well beyond my ability to understand and my explanation now, but if you have the time to go through it, it's worth the effort. And there's a great English Hebrew as well that I have here with it from the Art Scroll, so you should really get it. Art Scroll came out with a great edition of this Hebrew English, so if you can, get it. If you read the Hebrew either way, just read it. The Or HaChaim is saying something very powerful. Journeys of the Jews, it was about the sparks, not about the desert, not even about Israel. Remind me of a advice that I believe he once gave me when he explained to me that in life, it's actually not a great thing to always want to be someplace else. And you have to strive to be in the right places. You have to be around the wrong people. You have to always put yourself in the best places possible. But wherever you are, you have an opportunity to make a difference there. Stop looking for the next. If you're somewhere, be there. Bring godliness to wherever you are. And so whether it's encouraging or teaching or blessing or praying or something, recognize that if God placed you somewhere, it could be you've been placed there because there's sparks that need to be lifted. Me and you may have a journey very different than what we think. You see, when we look around and we see other people succeeding, we want to be like them. It's just comparativeness. It's not real. God doesn't compare. You are you, and you have your own journey in life. And if you've been given those family members and that community and that this and that job, if you find yourself talking to this person at the wedding, could very well be that that person needs you now. And whether we understand what it means to lift a spark or not, the lesson is the same. Bring godliness to everything you do. Lift people up in a holy way. And that's life. That's the journeys of your life. It's not about getting to the promised land at the time that is before your time. It's about wherever you go, be there and lift it up. Especially if you're in a place of lack of godliness. Every interaction, every moment, every day, every prayer, every food, everyone has the opportunity to lift up the world around them if they stop running and start realizing that their life is say your name. There's a book being written about you, and it says these are the journeys of your life. And if you recognize it, then every day has its own meaning, and you're not ready for the next. You can strive for more, but you're not always leaving and losing the now. Rav Shlomo Kabach had a story where he was once delayed on a flight and he was going to miss his gig. And he knew right away, if God's doing that, there's a reason. So they stopped and he said, I think it was in Amsterdam for a day. And he got off the plane. And he's like, okay, Hashem, show me. And he stops off at the store and he sees this guy. And the guy says, hey, you're a rabbi? He goes, yeah, I am. He goes, I just started to learn about Judaism. My mother is Jewish. My father is not. He goes, can you help me? And he started to spend the whole day talking to him, took him with him to Israel. And the guy became about Tshuva. And he got it. God needed some of him in Amsterdam. So he had the layover. But Shlomo Kabach maybe got it clearly. But guess what? We get it all the time. Person next to you on the plane, the person on the this, your colleague, the family member that you're raising versus anybody else, this neighborhood, our lives are filled with opportunities to lift people up. If we stop trying to compare ourselves to other people and stop trying to get to places that we're not there yet ready and start realizing that every journey is a journey of sparks, we lift up the world around us and maybe we become the people we're really meant to be.